school psychologist, Dr. Umar.
Hey!
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Good evening. I know the hour is late and I won't keep you too long, but today we acknowledge and celebrate and we ponder the concept of Umar, cooperative economics. I get invited to discuss economics a lot. And I think one of the reasons that we fail to adequately solve the economics issue that affects Americanized Africans is because we don't always look at it through a psychological perspective. There was a study that was released about a year or two ago on the spending habits of African Americans. And the study concluded that in order to understand the way black people spend money, you have to understand their precarious situation in America. It linked the spending habits of black people to their oppression. And the report said that what made black people's spending habits radically different from everyone else in America, radically different from the Anglo-Saxon, radically different from the Jew, radically different from the Latino, the Arab, the East Indian. They said what made our spending habits radically different from everyone else is that more than all other groups in this country, we are more likely not to buy because we need it, but because it is available. They said that black people overwhelmingly spend money on things that they really do not need, but because they are available. The report said it couldn't quite explain why we do this, but I'll tell you why. The reason we overwhelmingly spend money on things that we don't need, just because it exists, is that we buy things in an attempt to overcompensate for the fact that we are not allowed to participate fully in the American dream.
Teach.
For black people, our spending habits grow out of a desire to self-medicate our pain. For black people, we do not buy because we need, and in some cases not necessarily even want. We buy because we think having this will make life a little bit easier under white supremacy. Now, if black people shop to sedate their pain, if black people buy to cope with oppression, if we spend to escape the miseries of America, we will never solve the economic crisis of black folk until we replace the shopping and the spending and the money with something else that more appropriately helps us heal our wounds. That means if we want black folk to stop buying the things we buy, we have to replace that temporary pleasure we get when we shop with something that's a little bit longer lasting. Economics, shopping and spending is much like a drug. The research even shows us that being a shopaholic is very similar to being an alcoholic. In fact, when you shop, the areas of your brain that are excited while you're buying that car, buying those sneakers, buying that hair, buying those clothes, the areas of your brain that are excited when you buy are the exact same areas of the brain that are excited when folks use cocaine. The same areas of the brain that are excited during heroin use, marijuana usage. So for black people, shopping is a mental illness. And on top of that, your brain plays tricks on you. How? While you shop, you spend, you feel good. Because you feel good, you have all of these triggers in the brain that release hormones that make you feel good about shopping. You get manic about it. In psychology, is a condition known as mania. That's when you're energetic, feel like you're on top of the world. Nothing can feel better. Your body is oozing, and shopping brings on the onset of mania. And that's why when you spend in one store, you can't help but go and shop in another store, and then another, and then another, because the act of shopping releases chemicals that make you feel good until you get home. Did you notice as soon as you walk through the front door, that temporary euphoria that you experienced at the mall automatically shuts down, and you go from mania to depression? You look at your receipts, you balance your checkbook, you look at your balance, but check it out. This is how the brain works. Instead of telling you that you bought a lot of stuff you didn't need, take it back, your brain plays a trick and make you think the reason you feel bad is because you didn't spend enough money. And so tomorrow you go out and repeat the cycle all over again. So I would ask everyone in here with a shopaholic issue, and most of us have it because most of us are victims of oppression, and shopping is one of the best ways to self-medicate. And it's one of the only addictions that is not considered to be an addiction. Overeating is an official addiction. Being addicted to romantic pleasure, that's an official diagnosis. Marijuana, cigarettes, crack, every other addiction in the world is treated like an illness, but not shopping. And do you know why? Because shopping feeds the American capitalistic empire, so they will never marginalize a behavior that feeds the system of economic exploitation. So brothers and sisters, I'm going to give you all a homework assignment. I want you to go home and I want you to brainstorm what is really at the root cause of why you spend so much money. In other words, what is that conflict in your life that has you trying to escape it by shopping? Is it a sex abuse from childhood? Is it a poor relationship with your parents? Is it a low self-esteem born from the internalized parent who criticized you all your life? Is it the fact that you feel like you haven't accomplished the goals you set out for yourself? Is it because you think you're inadequate as a mother or as a father? Find out what is driving your shopaholicism, because if you don't, you will buy yourself to death. Now, if we're going to deal with economics, we have to talk about Jesus money. We have to talk about Jesus money, brothers and sisters. Because contrary to popular belief, we're not talking about Christian money. We're talking about Jesus money. And we have to deal with one of the biggest contradictions in the black community. We're not dealing with religion, we're dealing with economics, I want to be clear. And one of the biggest conflicts and contradictions in the black community is that the money we give our religious institutions benefits the American social order more than the black people who give that money to the church, and give that money to the mosque, and give that money to the church. This is a central contradiction, because we love to talk about how the Arabs will come and exploit. We love to talk about how the Mexicans and East Indians will come and exploit. We love to talk about how the Anglo-Saxons will come and exploit. The Chinese and the Koreans will come and exploit. But do you realize that in most black communities, the biggest taker is the church and not the Chinese stop and go? The biggest taker is the religious institution and not the supermarket. Do you realize that the average black church has their money in a white bank?
That's right.
And that the average black church doesn't even do research on the economic behavior of the bank to even make sure that your Jesus money is benefiting the black folks who believe in Jesus? Do you recognize that in cities, including Jackson, where they try to gentrify, take back, and let me digress for a second, brothers and sisters. When Mayor Lumumba was alive, we got invited, our last visit here, to Jackson State University football game. He sat up in the box, or at least I did. He sat down below with the people, but I was up, I believe, with the president of the university, assistant. So we're watching Jackson State play this game. And I enjoyed it because I never saw a live drum line. Having been an all-white university, I waited to see that my whole life and finally experienced it for real. But there was a white woman who approached me up in the president's box at the game. And she said, I heard you're a psychologist. I said, yes. She said, I heard you're a principal. I said, yes. She said, well, I want to give you my card because we could probably use you. And I said, use me for what? She said, well, Mississippi just passed the charter school law. And so we're looking for folks who can come into Jackson and help us build charter schools. Now let me take you back. All across America, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, Los Angeles, white folk are taking back black communities in the disguise of a charter school. I personally believe, and I'm not from Jackson, but I'm a political scientist, I personally believe that it was not a coincidence that the charter school law passed in Mississippi right around the time Brother Chokwe was elected. I believe the strategy of white folk was to get back a majority of the city through opening up charter schools, making black people think they're opening up schools for your children, but who gets hired at the school? They open up the charter, and then they hire their white friends and white family. Now the school might be 99% black children, but the employees are 99% white folks. And then when those white folks get hired at the new charter schools in Jackson, they naturally want to live close to where they work. So all the abandoned houses, they buy them up. All the vacant properties, they buy them up. And then once they buy them up, the property value steadily begins to climb on up. And so black folk who thought supporting the charter school was a good thing finds out it was a bad thing because the only reason why they opened the charter school was to move you the hell out your own school. I don't know if y'all have any charter schools in Jackson yet, but please be careful. Because Jackson is predominantly black and it's the state capital. Something you do not see a lot of in this country. So be careful of the charter. Now, if a black person opens up a charter school and they're legitimate and we know they care about the people, support that. But make sure that black person is simply not representing the agenda of white folk. Because what they do is they send a black person